G'day, I'm Pat Cummins, captain of the Australian men's cricket team and a mate of the man you're about to meet. Australian Story first profiled David Pocock back in 2016 when he was both an international rugby star and an environmental activist. Turns out politics and sport do mix. He's now entered federal parliament as an independent senator and is fast becoming one of the most powerful players in the current political landscape. Luckily, David Pocock is a man used to pressure.
Every year, for the past few years, there's been an annual State of Origin touch footy match on the Senate lawns. This year, it was quite the sight with the Prime Minister in the New South Wales Blues jersey, and then running on for Queensland is David Pocock, still very, very fit, professionally passing the ball. But no, he is the now independent senator for the ACT.
3 cheers for the Queenslanders and Canberrans. Hip hip! Hip hip! Hip hip! He went to school in Queensland.
And there's actually all the stuff that I learned playing rugby that is really applicable to politics. Being able to take on board feedback, being part of a team, you know, working with people that you don't necessarily agree with, but you have this bigger commitment and purpose.
The Albanese government needs someone like David Pocock to get its agenda through. It's extraordinary. Someone who used to play for international football is now one of the most powerful people in federal parliament.
I've been so frustrated with politics, and for me, you can either get cynical and check out and say, well, it's never going to change, and they're all a bunch of crooks, and I'll just leave them to it, I'm going to get on with my life. Or you can engage and say, well, actually, we have this amazing democracy in Australia, and I can actually get involved and help change it and hopefully help make it better. I was saying to people, listen, I'm not a career politician. I haven't done this before, and I think that's what we need.
Pocock is arguably the best in the world.
David Pocock was certainly establishing a model where the people who live among them can really benefit.
In August last year, while Dave was in Zimbabwe, we were approached by a group called Proact, who were like the local voices of group here in Canberra, and they had set out to try and find a candidate to run as an independent to represent the ACT in the Senate.
Yeah, well, we had kitchen table conversations with hundreds of people across the ACT last year, and the things that we heard were people were disillusioned with the state of politics, keen for change. We asked people, what sort of a candidate might you like to see? And there was only one name that kept on coming up time and time again, and that was David Pocock.
We kind of just dismissed it out of hand. It just seemed like a ridiculous thing.
But the more I thought about it, I just couldn't get past the opportunity that it was to actually represent a community I loved. And there's these really big things that I care about, and so many of them align with what people in the ACT care about: action on climate and the environment. Integrity was something that kept coming up. Another thing here in the ACT is territory rights for voluntary assisted dying laws.
By the end of November last year, we made the call, and within 2 weeks, we'd kind of launched this crazy Senate campaign.
A round of applause for the man who is putting himself up as the independent candidate here for the ACT. Please keep making noise and introducing to the stage, David Pocock!
There was an instant reaction from everyone, especially the Liberal senator at the time, Zed Seselja.
The sitting Liberal senator admires Pocock's rugby prowess, but less so his politics.
He's, I guess, best known for being arrested for a Extinction Rebellion-style stunt, chaining himself to a bulldozer. So he obviously brings something of that radical green tinge, but, you know, good luck to him.
Throughout the campaign, David was very clear that he had received backing from Climate 200, but most of the donations were very small and from just regular people in the community.
Housing affordability and cost of living pressures also come up a lot. And at the start, it was, how can we make politics about people again? That was kind of our guiding star. And it seems like that's actually engaging people and listening to people. Most people want some sort of saner, more centrist path where we're actually building the kind of future that we all want. As an introvert, having all these conversations, like I think I've probably talked to more people in the last 6 months than the last decade. That's the really exciting thing about being an independent, is that I've got no party line to toe. I don't have to, look at a camera and lie.
And then we had the pushback from the group Advance Australia. Now, this is a group that's tied to the Canberra Liberals, and they spent a lot of money and a lot of attention on David Pocock's campaign. They riffed on him being an extreme Green and someone who was hiding his Green credentials.
Conservative lobby group Advance Australia would have you believe the former rugby player is part of the Greens.
I can't tell you just how outraged the community was when the core flutes of the fake Superman went up. People were just disgusted.
The Electoral Commission ruled that those ads were deceptive and misleading and that they should be pulled down.
By the time we got to the election, we had 2,200 volunteers signed up. On the night, the numbers looked really good. So there was a real sense in the room of like, this is going to happen.
The Australian Electoral Commission today formally announced that David Pocock has won the second ACT Senate seat.
And it was an historic achievement that someone who didn't represent the major parties was suddenly a territory senator.
I picked up the phone after he was elected to Parliament, and he's a very reasonable man to actually talk to. But it's like anyone, state the facts. Let us know the truth about what you're trying to push in this Parliament.
It's just go, go, go from first thing in the morning till late at night, organising for the old signage to come down, trying to find new signage, setting up the electorate office.
Moving in. First 2 weeks were big. There's a lot to learn in terms of the process in the Senate, but also getting across all the legislation. I think there were 18 bills that they were introducing in the first 2 weeks.
In order to get legislation passed that's controversial, that the opposition don't support, the government will need the support of the Greens and then one more vote. So that one more vote could be David, it could be one of the Jackie Lambie Network senators, one of the One Nation senators, or new UAP Senator Ralph Babbitt. This puts David in a pretty unique position.
David Pocock's agenda aligned very much with the Albanese government's starting point, so it's more likely seen that David Pocock is the one to get things through.
We've got this massive opportunity through decarbonisation.
The number of emails for meeting requests, phone calls that we get, lobbyists just trying to pop in. We ended up locking our door during the sitting week just so we could actually get some work done. Are you on now?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be on now.
When you're that key number in the Senate, you have to make decisions about all of government, about issues that you haven't thought about before. They're not part of why you're in the Parliament, but you're under enormous pressure. And that's probably where the landmines are, is those issues that you're not confident on and you've just got to make a call.
I look at him and go, you're the captain of the bloody Wallabies team, mate. You had a big job. I can only imagine the pressure on him back in those days. I don't think that will be a problem of his.
So tomorrow we've got a meeting with Bowen's office on the proposed carbon impact assessment, and Camilla from Senator Lambie's office is going to come to that as well.
I've had a lot of discussions with David. He seems to have a lot of common sense. And what we're trying to do is use the block of three. So basically they have to deal with the three of us. That's myself, Tammy and, of course, David. So that way we're not batting against each other. It actually gives us a lot more power, especially when you've got to put through amendments which make a bill better.
Quick run into Parliament to start the week. Really big week ahead.
The climate bill begins its debate in the Senate today.
Minister, which amendments will you be supporting to your climate bill?
We'll be supporting sensible amendments which are in keeping with our agenda, as we did.
It's a big week for the Albanese government in regards to the signature climate bill, which would enshrine a 43% carbon emissions reduction target for Australia by 2030. It has hit the Senate.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Wong.
David Pocock's become suddenly a very, very important person in this parliament.
Given the need for transparency and accountability and ultimately integrity in our carbon markets, will the government commit to including a review of the regulator? The climate bill, 43%, is something most people want to see happen. I don't think it's ambitious enough. But clearly a more ambitious target is on the table. So for me, it's about the integrity of that 43%.
Well, I think David's doing some very hard bargaining, considering that the Labor Party did not want to touch any amendments whatsoever. He's certainly pushed them right to the edge, and good on him.
I mean, talking to Jackie and Tammy, the discussion has been how do we ensure this 43% that we're actually going to get there? And that's where the idea of actually reporting in the budget of how our spending's going to affect emissions going forward.
We won't be rubber stamping it. We want the government, the Commonwealth, to be accountable for the money it is throwing out to reduce emissions.
But I've had very good and constructive conversations with Senator Pocock. He's engaged, as you would expect.
We've settled on some amendments that I think will actually strengthen the bill.
I feel that David Pocock really needs to understand what he's doing. Yes, we are having climate change, but is it really due to humans? I don't believe it is.
What is the impact of human carbon dioxide on any climate factor? Nothing at all has been ever provided on that anywhere in the world.
It seems like a pretty sad day in Australia when in 2022 we're hearing arguments about climate science. After however long of the bullshit that Australians have had
Senator Pocock, that language is not parliamentary. I ask that you withdraw. Senator Pocock, I ask that you find another term to use.
I withdraw this truth.
Thank you.
In 2022, to be trying to debunk climate science in 10 minutes, I think is why Australians are so frustrated.
Well, David Pocock's going to have the final say in this place, whether legislation gets passed or not. And it's got nothing to do with the ACT. His decision will impact all Australians.
The Albanese government is hailing the passage through Parliament of its 43% emissions reduction target.
Labor's more ambitious climate plan passing its last big hurdle.
37 ayes and 30 noes. The matter is resolved in the affirmative.
Swamp wallaby or something.
It's been really nice for me to see him step into this new role where he's able to be more of himself in public than he was when he was playing rugby.
VTEC saying that the federal government put $880 million towards light rail.
And I think he's really aware of, you know, that idea of not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good, but actually wanting to make progress because we don't really have any more time to waste.
For a small bird.
The territories get 2 senators and they only get 3 years, so you've got to get cracking, which is great. That's why I'm here. I want to get stuff done. I want to actually deliver for people in the ACT. I want to be a senator that they are proud of.